Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning from. This is the LinkedIn Live Lunch Hour with Michael Goldberg. Of course, I'm Michael Goldberg, your host. So pull up a chair, bring your sandwich, your Oreos, maybe some chips, and a drink, non-alcoholic, unless it's evening. And let's talk today about all things talent, but really focused in on team dynamics, building high performing teams, not virtually, how we're doing it together as a company. And so, I've got a great guest. And so this guest brings over 20 years of corporate talent leadership. And then I believe a couple of years ago, she jumped into the fray on her own, right? So her big thing, I'm going to read it here, she combines a strategic and futuristic mindset with a hippie heart for humanity. So peace, love, and happiness. She gave her first TEDx in April of 2019. She's got a ton of followers, and she even has her own podcast called it's Build Your Performance Team. Is that right?
Well, actually, too. So our long form is exactly our company name, Build High Performing Teams. And our short form, which is now on LinkedIn and other avenues, is Culture and People podcast. So that's a 10-minute long podcast versus like more an hour.
Got it. Got it. So, well, first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
Miss Anna, how are you?
I'm so good.
You're coming to us from the King of Cheese, correct?
Yeah, Wisconsin, baby, right outside of Milwaukee.
Excellent. And you're native of Milwaukeean, or?
Actually, Illinois. Yeah, so not too far away. My hometown is about 3.5 hours from here, depending on how you drive. I grew up in the Quad Cities, which is on the border of Illinois and Iowa. So I didn't make too far of a leap when I came to Milwaukee.
Well, that's good. It's one of the places I haven't been, but need to go to.
Oh, please. And, whatever new normal after COVID, we've got great food, great live music, just so much to offer. Beautiful lakefront. People just underestimate Milwaukee.
And is the cheese good?
It's so good.
Is it really? What makes it good? Is it just the cows, or is it the?
I mean, the cows, but I also think the preparation. They've mastered the squeaky cheese curd, right? The cold cheese curd or the fried cheese curd, if you really want it gooey. There's so much stuff we have to offer.
I love fried cheese curds. They're the best.
And obviously, we have more than beer and cheese, but it is a fun thing to talk about. It's so good. I love both.
Who needs more than beer and cheese?
Not me.
Not I. So there you go. So why don't you, I've given just a little very high level overview. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, awesome. So first of all, I'm a mama. So my twins, I have boy-girl twins, Asher and Juniper, and they will turn 10 in October, right after my husband and I. We also share a birthday. So we only have 2 birthdays in our house. My husband's name is Scott. He's a great supporter of all things lovely. But first of all, I'm a wife and a mama, but also then a business owner. I've been in this space out on my own for, 4 years, 5 months, 6 months now. And just really loving the fact that I can continue to plant seeds. I kind of look at what I do from whether I'm inside a corporation for 20 years, working on their people strategy or their corporate strategy or how those two talk to each other. Or now I'm out on my own. I'm planting seeds in a lot more organizations. It's just really an honor to be able to advance. My whole goal is to restore humanity into our work and our workplaces. And most of my career has been spent in a hodgepodge of organizational roles, whether that's supply chain or customer service, then landed in this HR people ops space, and really just loved tying my top 2 strengths of strategic thinking and futuristic thinking to my passion for the humans that work for an organization, and how do we sort of move all of the ants through the ant farm in a really healthy and engaging way. So a lot of what I do, Michael, just to put it in 3 buckets: community. We've got our blog, we've got our podcast. We put out a lot of content, a lot of freebies. That is probably also the bucket I would put my speaking into. Do a lot of virtual workshops and keynote speeches, virtual now, before they weren't. And then the other 2 buckets would be coaching, which is either one-on-one leadership or executive coaching, or sometimes even team between co-founders of a startup, for example. It's one of the top reasons startups fail is some of that conflict. So I'll help them work through that. And then on the consulting side, it usually ends up being whether I'm an interim leader of HR people or helping them on a specific project to either move their business goals or their culture or both, because I do think they're directly connected, move them both forward. So just loving what I'm doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let me hit on something there. You talked about, current thinking versus futuristic thinking. What is futuristic? I mean, I could guess, but tell me in your words what futuristic thinking is and how does that apply to the workplace?
Yeah, I would say I'm a futurist, but I'm not a fortune teller, right? So I think futuristic thinking takes, and I think when I was younger, Michael, I actually thought futuristic thinking was always dreaming in the future and saying this is where we need to go. And I'm really good at envisioning that, but I think the really good futuristic thinkers combine what they know about history, what has already happened, so that we understand what we could do better or differently to get different results this next time. So to me, that's futuristic thinking, is valuing where we've been, but really distinctly visioning where we could go and how that's going to help us achieve personal joy and fulfillment, organizational alignment and success, whatever that looks like, really helping us get where we are to where we want or need to be.
I'll play cynic here for a moment. So excuse, I'll bring cynical Michael into the room.
Bring it.
So, no, I'm kidding. I was going to put on a different voice and
do it.
Be so that, someone would go, well, that's all fluffy shit, but it's not. So how do you bring people into that thought? Because I think, isn't that what everybody strives to do?
To
be in terms of futuristic thinking, isn't that where we should be already? Or are companies still stuck in a groove that they just can't get out of?
I'm a really strengths-based thinker, and I coach that way too, Michael. So I guess one of the delineations that I will make is that not everyone has the top strength that I do of futuristic thinking, right? Empathy might be yours, or something around execution might be yours, where mine just tend to be in that strategic thinking space. There's more than one space. And so you ask about an organization, should they be thinking futuristically? Yeah, ideally, right? Where are we going? Why are we doing the things today? And where do we hope that that's going to get us? But I don't believe that everybody has the strength even on their leadership team, nor should they, to be very strong futuristic thinkers. A diverse team means that we have diverse strengths. And so as much as we should be thinking about the future, we should be having people who spend a lot of time right where we're at today, thinking about short term, right? The short-term game, the long-term game, and even people on our team that really know our history very, very well and can ground us there. Because people like me, even though I talk about valuing the data and the history, Michael, if I'm not careful, I can get really ahead of myself and be too far down the road. And I require then, this is where organizations who are bigger than mine, where I have 4 teammates, can actually have the advantage of saying, how do we complement each other? Whether it's the leadership team or a special project team of high performers or high potential people in your organization, use that, build a real diverse team. So yes, you get the futuristic, but you also get a lot of the short-term right now thinking also.
No, absolutely. When you, during this time of interesting times, we call it COVID, how are managers doing to engage their employees? What are some of the things that they need to be doing more of to ensure they maintain team cohesiveness?
Okay. Well, first I heard, how are managers doing? And I immediately think I'm going to give them a little bit of a grade. And then your question advanced to more the tactical, which I do. But let me first, Michael, share that if I had to give a grade, the grade for management would actually be higher than it was before COVID. And here's why. depending on the stats that you look at, 8 out of 10 leaders, maybe 7 out of 10 leaders are not that great. 1 out of 10 is the natural leader, and 1 out of 10 you could probably develop into a pretty good leader. So we're looking at like a 70 to 80% failure rate in terms of leadership, of they're really doing a good job at leading or inspiring or whatever word you want to use, right? That was before. I actually think we have improved in many ways because organizations as well as individual leaders, whether we liked it or not, our toes were pushed to the line, right? Our toes were pushed to the line to say, we're forced to confront how I personally as a leader could be doing things better or differently, or as a organization, how can we do things better or differently? And that could be because we found ourselves in a crazy, chaotic time of COVID. It could be because the uprising of the people are demanding that we handle humanity or the talent better, whether that's between COVID or even the Black Lives Matter movement. You have a lot of employees demanding differently than they did before that their organization or leaders step up to represent them and to treat them both individually and as a brand externally. Culture internally, brand externally, both of those two things matter. And so that I have to say that their overall score for me has gone up. I still agree that there are a lot of crappy leaders out there, to be very honest. There really are. But now is this time where we could actually use this as a growth period. So that's my grade. Can I get tactical with you? You want me to give some tactical suggestions?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you want me to get tactical and give some?
Yeah, let's go some tactical. It's always good to share some tactical.
Awesome. Okay. So from a tactical perspective, I always say, like, first of all, leadership is a man-on-man game, right? It's like 1-to-1. If it's not that, when you are together as a team, you will not be able to execute, right? So you can practice as a team. Let's use a sports analogy. You can get the team on the court but if you as a coach don't have any knowledge of their one-on-one intimate knowledge of their strengths and their drawbacks, you're actually not going to be able to play them effectively on the court. So I say it starts individually. And for that, the really tactical suggestion that I have, Michael, is that they need to be meeting consistently. Best practice for me, every week. 30 minutes at least every week. If you can't pull it off for whatever reason, I would go to 1 hour every other week. But even my ideal would be at least 1 hour every week. And if you have too many employees to get that done, then you have too many employees. And if you have too many things on your plate to get that done, then you have too many other things that are distracting you from your number one job as a leader, which is to build a connection with each of your employees. And I get how hard that is, Michael, because just like parenting, like I have twins. You think that would be easy, but then they're very different people. And I have to parent differently, even though they're at the same age group. So take that as an example for leaders that says, I hired people into the same role. They should be able to execute. They come with different strengths, different past experiences, different personality preferences, different season that they're in. We just have to acknowledge, I get that it's a complicated game, but my friend Phil Gerbishek says it's not hard, it's just difficult, right? It is difficult. It is difficult, but if you put thought to it, you're going to get a big ROI out of that individual connection.
Yeah, and I know that was like one of the biggest things for me going into the organizations where I worked was to get to know the team. Mm-hmm. Once I got to know the team, understood what their likes, their dislikes, hot buttons, how they liked to be managed, I would have these opening dialogues with new team members as they came on or as I came in and they were existing, right? Because I've got to lean on them for information, especially for those that are going into a leadership position that they're going back into the workforce after having been out for a little bit or even a long time. The first thing I always, and I love this book called The First 90 Days. Are you familiar with that book?
I am.
It is a great book. And basically, one of the things it says is just shut up and listen. Take the first 90 days to shut up and listen and observe. Take copious notes. I mean, don't sit there and be idle, but right, So I completely get that because if your people are doing the work, like the roll up your sleeves, get it done, dirty work. Pardon my dog. then you have to, it messes with my head. You have to get to know them personally and professionally, and make sure that you're in tune with them at least once a week, where you have some good one-on-one time. It's a little different these days, though.
It is. It is. You know, I would even say, Michael, that we should be even meeting in those micro or informal ways more often because of the disparate nature of our teams at this time. So I've led virtual teams for years before COVID happened. My company right now is a virtual team. So I have some experience in that during, let's call it, normal times. Mm-hmm. And when you are virtual during normal times, it's important that I have those micro connections. So for example, my team uses an app called Voxer, Voxer, and it's our walkie-talkie app. We talk back and forth all day long. We're sharing articles. We're sharing little audio clips of like, hey, I'm stuck on this thing that you wanted me to update related to the spreadsheet. Could you make a little video and walk me through that? We really used that as a communication tool for non-timely issues, right? If we need something right away, we're going to pick up the phone. But if we need something today, we're going to Vox about it. If it can wait past today, then it can wait for a team meeting, or it can go on Monday.com, which is what we use for project management. So, but that, guys, right there takes time to say what should go on there, and we give each other feedback, right? My dogs heard your dogs and want to like totally play in the mix here. So like, welcome to COVID, people. We all have dogs.
Well, some have cats, but we won't talk
yes,
about
that's
those
true.
folks.
We don't all have dogs, but we all have things. So that's just an example, I think, of how we can look at this as a reframe, right? As a reframe of opportunity. Yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, you know, and it, I think that we have issues with trying to figure out how much should we be doing remotely, you know, learning when to cut off, creating boundaries, right? Your start times, your end times. How do you recommend people that haven't been used to working remotely? I mean, people are, you know, 5 months in, they better know what they better be used to it by now.
Yeah.
But for the people that are still having boundary issues, knowing when to separate work from family or even personal time, what suggestions do you give there?
Well, you know, I think one quick clarification for me, Michael, is that even though we're almost 6 months in, depending on, you know, when you went quarantining, where you live and all that good stuff, we have been very scrappy. I give us all credit as a human race, really, the globe, that said, oh crap, we have to figure out something different. So what we did is we got really scrappy. And there's nothing wrong with being scrappy. Like, we should pat ourselves on the back. But now I really want people to start thinking about how do you move some of those habits and behaviors? Because, by the way, Michael, your habits and behaviors is what makes your company culture. Your habits and behaviors are actually what brings your external brand to life. So if you're thinking, oh, we have our values placed on the wall, we're good, you're not. You actually need to be paying attention to the daily habits and behaviors of your leaders, of your people, because that's the outcome. And now we need to be thinking about sustainable daily habits and behaviors. So I'll get on my soapbox for a little bit and talk about this remote working that's happening right now. We have what a lot of organizations did, and again, it was scrappy, so kudos, but what a lot of organizations did, Michael, is they lifted and shifted their work. Right. So as a senior leader in an executive in organizations before I went out on my own, I was in meetings all day long meetings. I got my work done at like 4 a.m. and 9 p.m. when my kiddos were not awake. The real work, right? The meetings were all during the day. I don't think that was healthy beforehand, but then when organizations lift and shift that to have everybody be on 9 to 10 hours. I mean, I have tons of friends who are running organizations, 9 to 10 hours of Zoom calls. It's not good, guys. It might have been scrappy, because I even talked to an executive at a Fortune 100 company, a client of mine, not too long ago, and they said, but my people are so much more productive. And I said, yeah, no, they've been productive because they were scared to lose their job, or they were, you know, really, everybody was in scrappy mode, but that's not good for them in the long term. So we actually have to look at setting up our work days and giving permission to our employees differently than we did before. Permission to say, I don't think I should be in this many meetings. Permission to say, do I need to be involved in that meeting because there's no agenda? I have no idea why you invited me. Even small things, Michael, like permission to turn off our video when we're on a Zoom group chat. I know it's more engaging when we see the faces, Michael, but like when we were in a conference room before COVID, we maybe saw the one or two people across us. We sort of took notes or were on our computer or whatever. We weren't like this in little boxes looking at everyone's face at all time. And by the way, also our face, which is extremely distracting. So I just want to push organizations to say, you might have pulled this off because you were really scrappy, kudos to you. But now I really, really want to challenge you, and not just your leaders, but your people, to come up with sustainable practices for remote work into back in the office, or maybe permanent remote work. Look at all the organizations who are like, you know what, this isn't so bad. We're going to do it.
Yeah, I'm probably on 4 Zoom calls a day, but it used to be a lot more. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing some recruiting right now. So I'm doing a lot more phone interviews, and it's just to not have these monsters over my ears when I talk, or to have these things in here. I like the phone call because it gives you a break. Plus, I can stand up. If I need to stand up for a minute and just take a break or move around, which even when I talk to my clients who are interviewing, I basically tell them, if you're doing a phone interview, stand up. Stand up. And I go, and they go, why? I go, because you're getting your blood flow going from just sitting on your tush and your legs all the way through your body. You're walking around a little bit. You're getting the blood flowing, so it makes it easier for you to think as you're going through your interview, because you're on that phone. Now, when you have a Zoom interview, you have to bring that same kind of energy sitting on your tush.
You do,
right? And that's really hard for candidates. To do. And sometimes they'll look down. They'll look at the other person. They won't look at the camera. And so, those are the kind of things that I think when you're doing these kinds of Zoom calls, I think it gets tiring to sit here and talk to a camera for so long.
Yeah.
So,
but this is where you mentioned data earlier, Michael, and I love the fact that data is now driving a lot more of our talent decisions, because we shouldn't be separating people and business. We use our data to help us make better people decisions so that we make even better business decisions. So data is important to an organization, but data is also important to us. Like you need to monitor how you feel having those earbuds in for, right? And so then just like I do. So now I know. I've always known, well, maybe not always, but for a while I've known I'm better in the morning. So I tend to put all my podcast recording of my podcasts into the morning. I tend to do these things. After 2, I really, really try not to do any of this, because I know I'm not going to be that great for you. So we have to pay attention to our own data and track our own tendencies and give ourselves permission to set up those boundaries. Because people might be saying, yeah, it's easy for me to do that because I own my own business. I am my boss. But I did this in corporations. At my last organization that I was at, I started a firm-wide, 4,000 plus people, Michael, productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness work. We did office hours. We pulled back on meetings. We saved millions of dollars and tens of thousands of hours just by saying, is this really how we should be doing things? Could we get better at using our time and our energy and giving ourselves more space to breathe, to think, to do?
I love that. I think that, there are a lot of companies that do no meeting Fridays.
Yep.
Some hold to it, some don't. That certainly helps. But I agree. I think people meet for the sake of, I think it hurts productivity, unless it's some major, huge implementation or a major process change, something that could disrupt business flow or even stray off the strategy path. There's no reason to meet every single time you feel like you want to discuss something.
And I think the what's the word I'm looking for? The intent behind it, Michael, right now of these organizations who are saying like meet with a new employee every day or once a week, and they're just putting so many things that I would call formalized connection. But let's go back to the Voxer or to Slack channels or to texting we need informal connection points too. If you are overscheduling, just like with children, if you overschedule them, they will have consequences. They will not perform as better mentally or physically. They're humans, we're humans. Put boundaries into place so that people don't feel as if they have to go, formalized connection. You'll create actually more authentic connection between those informal opportunities.
And now we're adding a whole new dynamic. You mentioned you're a mom.
Yeah.
You have two kids, two twins that are in the same grade, starting school. I assume either you and or your husband has to monitor that they're doing the work, that they're not on their phones during class. And there are just so many people that I've talked to that say, some that are married and some that are single moms saying, I've got to balance my own business. I've got to make sure my son or sons get homeschooled, those kinds of things. So how do you break the monotony there? How do you compartmentalize everything? Because that person that has to do it, especially if they're single, is having to do it, they're having to take work into the wee hours of the night.
I know.
Because they have to take care of their kids.
I don't know. I get really choked up thinking about this, but for those single parents or for even the single people, like as stressed out as I am, guys, and as annoyed, let's just be real truthful, as annoyed as I can get sometimes with us all four in the same house, my husband working from home, my twins are here, blah, blah, blah. They're at that preteen stage, so everything's suddenly boring, even though I've never heard them speak that word before ever. So as annoyed as I am, I also have a heart for people who are alone in an apartment. And, so we're all it's like nobody's situation's worse. It's just different. So I have a heart for them. But for me specifically, when I think about how do we integrate work and life, by the way, that is the new number one reason for burnout. Before COVID, Michael, the number one reason for burnout was sheer amount of work that I had to do. Like, I have too much. Now the number one reason is the utterly blurred lines between work and life. Like I got no delineation between them. And what I want us to do, and first let me use myself as an example. I'm the first one to preach and have blogs and podcasts about this topic and give keynotes about this, that we should be owners of our time, talents, and our voice. So that means we do things like time blocking and we have white space on our calendar. And I'm giving all these suggestions. I don't necessarily call them life hacks, but I do think that they're suggestions on how you could better utilize your time, talents, and your voice, right? One of those suggestions, Michael, has always been minimize the multitask. First, I'll get rid of multitasking and try to minimize the amount of hat changing that you make a day. So, for example, going from leader mode at work to peer mode to presentation mode to this, to that, to this, to that. You add in now, they're going back and forth between all these meetings and, their kids are at home, they're making lunch while on a Zoom call, they're doing all of these things. We're in a time where, guys, we are changing hats. I mean, I change hats at least every 30 minutes because even when I have like a 30-minute, meeting on the calendar, I'm pretty lucky. My kids are not in the house at this moment, but they're pretty much in there. They're peeking their head in. Now I might do one of these off camera, right? But I'm constantly changing hats. So I guess what I'm saying, Michael, is that we need to give, just by the mere acknowledgement of what our current situation is, that maybe there's not a lot we can change about that. Like I can't fix the school system. I can't get rid of COVID. So what can I do? Like as a business owner right now, I used to work probably about 25 to 30 hours a week. And I was with my kids before school and after school. Now I'm lucky if I get 15 hours of really good work in a week. And I don't even say really good work. Let's just call it work.
Well, let's not discount that the work that you're doing as a parent is not work. It is work.
Oh my God.
So I would still say that you're doing work
Oh, yeah, yeah. But then work on, I mean, I own a business. I have people who report to me. So now I can only do that in 15 hours. So I can't change that 15 hours because I've put my kids at a top place that say I'm now camp counselor, I'm teacher's aide, I'm all these things that I didn't have to be for my kids before. I will gladly do that. That means I have to scale the box that my work fits in. And I don't think enough people are giving themselves permission to scale that box appropriately, to right size their expectations of themselves.
So as a leader, I'm hoping that you empower, and a preacher of these kinds, that you're empowering your employees to, unless it's going to be life altering and stuff like that, are you empowering your employees to go ahead and move forward with decisions when, whether or not you're available, or are they kind of having to wait until you're available in order to run something by you?
Oh, no. First of all, I'm a very high D in DISC. I have very red energy and insight language. I'm a driver, right? So that means that I really want my team to be very honest. So like I tend to already be that way, Michael, where I'm saying, you don't need to come to me for that, right? You guys are good. And as far as what they do need to come to me on, our team works when they want. And I need to know generally how many hours they're sticking to. They can get those hours done whenever. Now, we have team meetings and other things that I would like them to participate in, sure. But they have the freedom to make those decisions. And guess what I need to understand as a business owner and as a leader? That not all of those decisions would have been the way that I did it, right? Like, for example, we took over our social media page. We've gone back and forth a couple of times on stylistic things and, how I would like it, the actual post to be written on Instagram. And then I realized that like they own it at this point. They own it. So I can't keep coming in saying, do it this way, do it this way. I have to really look, and sort of that whole adage of pick your battles. Like I can't be coming at them with this nitpicky stuff. It has to be big directional shifts that are important to my brand as a leader. Otherwise I got to let it go. It's theirs and they'll do it differently than I am, but that doesn't mean that it's worse. It just means that it's different.
Right. So just want to give some shout outs to some people that have been saying hello. Hello, Clayton Cunningham, Parimal Gajar from Germany. We have someone watching from Germany. Good evening. Patricia Bernard from Frisco, Texas. Hello, Patricia. Doug Watkins from Arlington. Hello. And then Victoria McCullough has a question. She says, do you think numerous Zoom calls these days is a way for employers to really check on their employees when in reality you can't work while on Zoom team calls?
I think, you know what, Victoria? You may be onto something in some circumstances, right? It's really hard for all of us to understand the intent behind things. And as somebody who has built strategy and worked with executive teams for a long time, 15 plus years on that field, I will tell you that some of their decisions are very subconscious, right? They're not front of mind. They're done from a place of maybe they've been burned by employee productivity before. And so maybe they're, John's motivation versus, Kimberly's is different. Dan, John might come from a place of real paranoia, to your point of like, I really want to make sure my people are working all day. But the other person, Kimberly, comes from just this place like, oh, it's about connection. So I really want to make sure you're connecting with everybody. So we don't know their intention. What we have to do, Victoria, is kind of, I guess, screw the intention and go to the effect, right? Like whatever the cause was, the effect is this. The effect now is burnout is increasing, stress is increasing, physical and emotional health is at stake. So if we are not able to put up our own boundaries as people, we can't expect our organization to do that. There's too many people with different situations. You have to do that for yourself. And so even if you feel like you're being big brothered or they're trying to monitor you, don't worry about what their intention is. Figure out what works for your schedule, then have a conversation with your leader and make that agreement. This is what I really need to do to be successful. I need more white space in my day. I need less meetings. I need more connection time with you. Whatever that is, you speak to it. So screw the cause, go to the effect, and put up those boundaries for yourself.
I love that answer. I mean, it's spot on. Man, you're really good. Surprise. So in a few minutes here, we're gonna start wrapping up. But I'm not seeing any other questions right now. Um, you know, I guess one question I have for you as we kind of take this. What's the future look like around team dynamics, around team dynamics and management styles as we still continue to work remotely and probably will for the next, I'm going to guess 6 months to a year, just depending. That's worst case. What are some like final tips and tricks that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, as the futurist, because we started here, Michael, this will be some tips and this will be some maybe predicting of what's to come.
Mm-hmm.
But right now we are in, this is not a talent market, right? Talent does not have control right now because a lot has happened, right? My husband even, was reduced a few weeks ago, found a job within a week and a half, but that's a great success story for him. So we've all been impacted. And so knowing that we're in this place where a lot has been happening, we just have to make the, I guess we have to look at the situation and say, it goes back to that personal ownership of like individually, we have to take more ownership because soon, and here's the motivation, I hope, Michael, is that very soon these companies who cut too deep or cut deep enough, where I'm not coming at it from a place of judgment. I'm coming at it from a place of fact. They cut, they will need to adjust, pivot, and potentially rebuild. Not saying they're going to hire everybody old back. In fact, I hope they rethink. What are we doing? How are we doing it? How are we doing it? And then who do we need to do that, right? But then it becomes a talent market because now organizations feel a little bit more steady and they know directionally where they're going, even if they've had to pivot. And it becomes a talent market. And then now we do have more power of the people. This permission that should happen from a personal level now has more say and has more stakes. So we can actually start demanding things like, I'm sorry, I don't want to work a role that you think I have to come into the organization right now because I disagree that it's a requirement for this type of role. Then don't work for that organization, right? We will have more choices coming up. So if I were to predict anything, Michael, my hope maybe would be that we will see this shift from a place of fear and scarcity to a place of abundance where people, individual talent, feel really empowered. And that they act in really different ways related to their work, related to their times, their talents, and their voice, because it is theirs and they should get to choose. I mean, that was the whole TEDx talk was on leveraging where you are now to get to your best next, taking more ownership of your career. So that's my hope, is that not only will we have this uprising of the people, but that the ecosystem will have to accommodate it.
I think it will, and I think you're seeing, like, there was an article from Andrew Beamer, who is a LinkedIn editor, yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, where it was a write-up on this, people are leaving the Silicon Valley. They're getting out of San Francisco. They're getting out of New York.
There was an article like, where will people from New York move next? What's their place? People are like, I don't have to be here anymore.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. And so, and I still hold this to be true, though I haven't started to see. But I think you'll see commercial real estate take a tank, and you'll see more co-working suites being set up, and people should be allowed to work from home because we've worked hard to prove it. And for those that have to have a leash on all of their employees, and I'm sorry to put it that way, shouldn't be managers anymore.
Yeah, and then we'll start separating the wheat from the chaff. We'll start to naturally separate over the next, let's call it, couple months, but at least couple of years for sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely see a difference. Well, Anna, this has been a great conversation. I can't appreciate it so much. That I know you're super busy and you took a lot of time, and it's we got one more question. I'll allow it, and then so we need to keep it down to about a 1 minute.
Sure, I'll
do another. There you go. So, Anna, do you think AI and robotics will affect demand for talent, and also possibly how recruiting is done?
I do. Of course, it's the future. Like AI and robotics are going to be a part of it, guys. But my short answer for the individual, I want to give you some hope that humans still matter. In fact, humans will matter even more. So you want to think about where you should be improving. Look up the top 10 or 20 soft skills for 2020. Storytelling's on there. Curiosity is on there. Look at those soft skills, guys, and spend time there. We used to have to look at hard skills. Now is the time. Who you are gets to like breathe and lead and add a ton of value.
Well, and I think that it's also how you look at it, right? AI is just a tool.
Yep.
AI is not a person.
Yeah.
We as a person can choose to use AI to get the data we need to find the talent we need to bring into the organization.
Yeah.
Robotics, no. You still need that personal touch. Robotics and recruiting, I mean, sure, you could have chatbots doing our job, but you still need a human element to schedule. I don't, a lot of people are worried that AI and chatbots and stuff will take the place of a recruiter, but they don't have the search skills that we have and the connection and human skills to build relationships that AI and chatbots and robotics do not have.
Yeah. And look, this LinkedIn user, you're welcome to reach out to me directly because you may be also thinking about how AI and some organizations are going to start using that to, look for personality profiles and other things. So we could get off on that tangent, but I'm happy to connect with that person individually if they want to reach out.
Yeah. Yep. So again, Anna, thank you so much. I'll ask you just to hold on for a second after I end the broadcast. Thanks everyone for tuning in today. We'll be on next week with another great guest. And if you need to get in touch with Anna, you can connect with her on LinkedIn. I've also put her website, which is buildhighperformingteams.com, in the scroll there as it scrolls through. So feel free to reach out to her. And Anna, thank you so much for today. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Sending everybody peace and progress.
Peace and love. All right. Thanks, everybody. Make it a great week and stay safe.